Throughout last week, we looked at SaveMart, a clothing recycling business that donates a percentage of its proceeds to the Child Cancer Foundation and other charities. Those donations are not in dispute, and some have continued for many years, although what percentage they are of the revenue from SaveMart's 31 stores nationwide is not known. We began reporting on a dispute between workers and the company's owner at SaveMart in the Auckland suburb of New Lynn. Workers said they were exposed to health and safety risks as a result of having to search the contents of clothing bins with their bare hands. Faeces, blood, used syringes and sex toys, broken glass. That's some of what the clothing sorters we've spoken to say they found in large bales of donated goods that they go through. The staff in New Lynn who complained were all union members. They now face redundancy. First Union are talking to SaveMart about preventing that. But as we reported on New Lynn, we heard from more and more workers from other SaveMart branches. So does what they have told us support or contradict what we heard from the workers in New Lynn? We asked them. What SaveMart did you work at?
At Levin SaveMart.
And what was your job there?
I was a sorter manager on the weekends.
Carolyn was in Levin, small town New Zealand, an hour and a quarter north of Wellington, give or take a bit. But since our story about SaveMart in New Lynn, West Auckland, first went to air, we've heard from dozens of current and former workers from throughout the country. Mel, for example, where was she?
The Tauranga branch in Greaton.
Greaton. And Mel's namesake, Melissa?
I was at the Napier store.
New Lynn, Levin, Tauranga, Napier. And Nicole, where did you work?
I worked on the Cranford Street store.
In Christchurch?
Yeah, definitely.
And what was your job?
I was a sorter, but I was able to do every job there.
They're just some of the women we've spoken to, and we've also had written statements from many more, plus Facebook messages, emails and phone messages. In total, Checkpoint has now heard from roughly 50 workers, and it seems not to matter where they are or were, their stories don't vary much at all. Are you able to wear gloves when you are sorting?
No.
So I didn't even finish my
Absolutely
question.
not.
So you are emphatic about that?
Oh, yes. The gloves were never supplied. They were never an option, even if we asked for them, and that was when they said, this is what your job is, this is what you're doing, no, you're not getting gloves and no mask.
Gloves, or the lack of them, are the key complaint. Ever get gloves?
Never.
Location doesn't appear to alter that. That was Levin, this is Napier. Did you wear gloves?
No.
Were you a sorter?
Yes, I was.
Back with Mel in Greaton, Tauranga.
We had no gloves, no masks, nothing. And a couple of the other girls had made noises about finding broken glass and pottery and dirty nappies and syringes and everything that everyone's been saying. And so I voiced my concern to the supervisor as well. And, of course, I was told not to make waves, otherwise my job was on the line.
Gloves are so material because of what gets put in those big blue SaveMart clothing bins with child cancer written on the side. We've heard from workers in New Lynn and from other branches via phone, email and Facebook that faeces and blood are common. But here's what Nicole from Christchurch told me when I asked her, did you wear gloves?
No.
Why not?
Because we were told you weren't allowed to wear gloves because you can't feel if the clothing's damp or the type of fabric, and you just you weren't able to actually kind of feel the fabrics of the clothing, and so you couldn't determine whether it was good enough for the shop or not.
And so you would reach into the bale with your bare hands? Oh,
yeah.
And what?
It's a daunting thought.
What did you find in there during your time at SaveMart in Christchurch?
Oh, God. Used nappies, soiled clothing, needles, used spoons, syringes, drug paraphernalia, sex toys. I came across half a dead sheep at one stage.
And when you are clearing out, emptying the bale that stuff is in, you are doing it with bare hands because that's
with bare hands.
And you've been told to do it with bare hands.
Yes.
You're absolutely certain about that?
Yes.
Worker after worker is certain about that. The question is, why no gloves? Well, workers tell us that comes down to the sheer quantity of clothes being sorted. Hands are great detection devices. The clothes aren't washed after they're sorted, and they don't want to put wet clothes on the shelves. So ungloved hands alert you to any dampness. Here's Carolyn from Levin, where she never wore gloves.
And we were told not to wear them, but the sheer fact if any of the clothes come in wet that we'd have to put them up on a rail to dry them out. So nothing was ever washed.
Nothing is washed, and
Nope.
you're not allowed to wear gloves because then you wouldn't know the wet stuff.
No, and it wasn't just from being rained on either.
What was it from?
Pretty much from either being urinated on or anything like that was possible. And, you know, you're having to pick people's, like, I don't understand New Zealand because, like, people would throw out dirty, filthy undies and no, not a good look when you're dealing with them with your hands.
So did you ever reach into a bale and touch something that it was simply not appropriate on a health and... Constantly. So what are we talking about?
You name it, we pretty much had it.
So what did they do? A sheep's head, a used sex toy, underwear with faeces or blood? If they found such items in a bale, how would they handle them? Nicole from Papanui in Christchurch.
Try and find the closest plastic bag you can.
And do what with the plastic bag?
Pick it up with a plastic bag.
No gloves?
No gloves, no.
And then, of course, they would go and wash their hands with the hottest water they could manage, when there was hot water. Here's Melissa from Napier.
We had no hot water.
No hot water, even in the bathrooms?
No hot water at all.
Why not?
I don't know.
And what did Melissa find during her sorting? It's the underwear she remembers most of all.
Blood stains, faeces.
And you would be reaching in to pick this up with your bare hands?
Yeah.
And when you reached up and picked up some undies with blood or faeces in them, obviously you would want to go and wash your hands, but you told me you didn't have hot water to do that with.
No, we had no hot water.
No gloves, no hot water. Melissa said they'd had enough, so...
We joined a union because of our working conditions, and they called in the health and safety person, and he went round and had a look at the conditions and gave Tom a list of things that had to be done to get the place up and running. And in that time, we got made redundant, and he closed the shop for 3 months and rehired new staff.
In Levin, Carolyn and her colleagues went more gently with their complaints about health and safety.
We used to try and have conversations with our boss there, and we were just belittled, and it was like, well, don't say any more.
That was Levin. In Greerton, Mel remembers...
Anyone who even suggested that they might be joining a union was told that if they did that, they would lose their job.
And in Napier, what happened to Melissa, who did join a union and then a short time later lost her job?
It took me a year to get my redundancy pay off him, and I had to do that through legal channels.
Did the legal channels cost you money?
Yes.
So that is just some of the SaveMart workers we've heard from.